So I will call to order the planning board meeting for Tuesday, July 9th at 7 p.m. Our agenda for tonight is, and this is why I wanted to print. Sorry, I'm trying to quickly open this document. Why is technology just not?
I'm glad to share if that's helpful.
Okay. I got it now. So,
Okay.
it's pretty simple. Our agenda for the evening, we have minutes, review and approve meeting minutes from June 11th meeting and June 25th meeting. Then we have no hearings scheduled for tonight. And current planning board business on our agenda is the first item was to review the multifamily overlay zoning district MBTA community workshop and talk about next steps. And the second item on our agenda is review of items to work on the upcoming year. Then other business would be any reports on meetings with other boards and entities and the town planner report. And that would be the complete agenda for this evening, unless there is anything else that was an item not anticipated that should be added. Any discussion on that?
No, Steph wants to bring up the July 15th select board meeting and the Brush Hill, and I said that could probably go under reports on meetings with other boards as well, rather than.
Yes, I believe that's an appropriate place to discuss the other boards and the meetings that did come up last
Yeah.
minute. So that is an appropriate place. So we'll add that to the agenda in our heads under other boards.
The other thing that we were going to talk about, and I don't know if we can add anything to this, would be those working sessions you had brought up at the last meeting.
Correct. And I believe that follows after we get through our workshop follow-up, that working session that falls into the item number 2 on the agenda.
Okay, good, perfect.
Okay. So if everybody, may I have a motion to approve the agenda for the evening?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right. All in favor, moved and seconded. Addie Mae Weiss says aye. Frank Hoke.
Aye.
Jim Garino.
Aye.
And Steph Harrison.
Aye.
And so we are ready to proceed. As far as the MBTA workshop,
Did you want to do minutes first?
Oh, right, minutes. Let's do the minutes first. Apologies. Let me pull those up. And draft minutes, we'll start with June 11th. Thanks, Steph, as usual, for keeping us all on the on track. Share, where do I share? Come on, you would think now, what are we in year 3 of doing Zoom?
Do you need to pull it up? Does anybody have any changes?
All right, does anyone, I guess not. Does anyone have any comments or changes for the June 11th meeting?
I do not either. They were well done.
I am fine with the minutes as well. Nice job. Okay, so all in motion to approve accept the June 11th minutes as final.
Frank Hook, aye.
Okay.
So moved.
So moved. Thank you.
Sorry. I'm voting before we even moved it. Okay, so I'll second it then.
All right, voting. Because we're on Zoom, we need to do roll call vote. So Addie Mae Weiss, aye. Frank Hoke, you have said aye. Jim Garino. And Steph Harrison.
Aye.
Okay, so June 11th is all set. And the next one was the minutes from June 25th. Are we, everyone okay with the minutes from June 25th? That was a workshop.
I am.
These are also well prepared.
Okay. Nice job, Heidi. That was complicated one to do minutes for, and of course, nobody will ever match the example set by Steph. So,
No.
okay, so I move to approve the minutes or accept the minutes of June 25th as final. May I have a second?
Second,
Okay, moved and seconded. So all in favor, Addie Mae Weiss, aye. Frank Hook,
aye.
Jim Garino,
I,
and Steph Harrison.
I'm
Sorry.
gonna abstain because I wasn't there, and I did get a chance to watch the workshop in fast forward,
Okay.
but I didn't have a chance to review that minute set, so
Okay.
I'll abstain.
I have not watched the video. I know we had some challenges with audio in the select board room, and
Mhm.
which is why I feel like there are some additions that need to be made in order to make hybrid meetings work better.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, the transcript is somewhat helpful. Although Zoom does not have Sherborn in its vocabulary, so the creative substitutes that came up for what word was being said was very interesting. But it was a little hard to understand. That I did find the transcript to be a helpful feature because it could unpack some of that, but you never knew who was talking unless you
Right.
recognize voices. And
Right. So okay, we accepted the June 15th meeting minutes, and I don't recall, did we I'm sorry, we all agreed that there were no changes. Did we accept them? And we voted? Okay. I'm sorry. Losing my
Frank seconded,
Frank
everyone except,
seconded.
and then Steph abstained.
That's right. So that's
Jim.
where that's
Yep.
why I asked about how the audio recording had ended up.
Yep.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. All right. So now we may move on to the first agenda item and kind of not too lengthy discussion here, hopefully, but just a little bit of an unpacking on the MBTA workshop. I mean, I think the goal was to get a little bit more engagement and to present other options than the downtown area that had been originally focused on. We did find that there was there's been a group of residents who still don't know that, there's opposition to compliance. And that was the reason, because other towns, when we discussed options from a technical recommendation with Nels, it was pointed out that parcels which are already developed as multifamily may be submitted and would meet their 3A requirements, which is why Southfield and Abbey Road and 59 North Main were put up for discussion. There was some thought that maybe, it's always a challenge to figure out the best format, and it wasn't a hearing, it was a workshop. I think the room, I think when we did a number of years ago, the housing production plan workshop, we had tables and kind of round tables that encouraged people to discuss topics. I think what we had this time was a little bit more challenging because we needed to provided an opportunity for education. So that's kind of a lecture format as well as opportunity for discussion. So if I do see that we will have another I don't know if we'll call it a workshop, but we will need another kind of gathering of minds meeting in the future, and we'll have to figure out the best format for that. There was a group that's been in discussion that's looking at parcels which maybe do have potential, and then there's groups that kind of look at multiple. So I think in general, because it was an educational, there was some input on having a survey, and the planning board hadn't been in a while, but as Eric Johnson pointed out back in his sitting time on the planning board, I think it was 2014, had done a townwide survey using SurveyMonkey, and I looked at that, and it still exists. And I think it is a good starting point. And Heidi has helpfully come up with some potential survey questions, which, let's see, I think might be worth sharing on this Zoom screen. Or I guess before we get into the survey, which I think we should do, and when I show it's, I think it's kind of it might be one survey and then there might be a second follow-up survey. But does anyone else have any thoughts on the workshop, on the June 25th workshop?
I think that Eric brought up a good point last time, that it's not a vote or a poll. We're listening to residents, but in the end, the planning board is going to make the recommendation. So I think we're open to listening to people, but it's not a poll.
I would also just add that it does also have to pass town meeting. So even though it is the planning board putting through the whole plan for this, if the town doesn't buy the plan, then we have to regroup and start over again. So it does behoove us to educate the population at hand and maybe get some consensus ahead of time, so that you know, that town meeting vote works a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us through the years have experienced when things work well at town meeting, when everybody kind of feels the most confident in understanding the issues at hand. So education is key. Any other thoughts? I mean, I guess a good kind of there's the schedule of where we're at.
Well, can I just
is-
answer
yeah.
that question before you kind of keep moving on? I thought the presentation was well done. I felt that it provided a good background and understanding. I think it did a really good job, better than the previous one, on the benefits and the challenges and what happens if we don't comply. I think all that was a lot clearer. It didn't mention and didn't create the misunderstanding of, you know, um, multi-use and, you know, multifamily and, you know, the by right and everything. I just think it was a lot cleaner and a lot more understandable by people. And I think there was a good job done by the president by presenting the different regions and why the different regions were selected. And I also felt that there was good conversation from the audience, which gave us some perspective of where their thoughts are and where their misunderstandings were, and even with the presentation, that the clarification of that. So I think that went well. And I also have some input on a survey when we start to have that discussion.
Um, I was noting key points of confusion as we went along. So I have a little sub list of those. Some of them came up multiple times. So that would be helpful. I think if and when we do a survey, part of the challenge with that is that the survey itself has to have an education component, because those who weren't at that presentation, you can't just look at those slides and understand 3A, right? So that's going to be part of the challenge, is making sure that people who take the survey cold understand what's going on. There was a question that was brought up that I felt was a legitimate question, and didn't feel like it was necessarily answered clearly to me from what I could make out on the hybrid format recording. Someone asked about, how did you get to 7? Were there 8 other parcels maybe that meet the criteria but aren't on the list because maybe the planning board decided the town wouldn't like them, right? And I think that's a valid question. Like, that's kind of been my question from the beginning, is like, the first time I saw the 7 parcels, I was like, oh, where did this list come from, right? And so I was just kind of curious, I don't know the best way to do it. I don't know if now's the time to have that to answer the question, but I'm just trying to figure out like whether there are other parcels that could be on the list. I mean, certainly the downtown, it sounded like people want to add the downtown back in. Sorry. And then like how do we explain other parcels that aren't on the list, or how these 7 were selected, I guess. And then the other question that wasn't answered was like the condo question, right? Like if is that a single parcel if we're talking about a condominium, the like Southfield? That's like those are, or maybe it's not Southfield, but some of them where there's condos, are they all owned?
The one that's on Kendall, that one, that condo complex is elderly housing, so it's age restricted, so therefore that wouldn't work for openers for that one anyway. But certainly across the street it would work because there's no issues with, there's no condos.
I think what we want to do is have, demonstrate a process really. So we first of all looked at 8 or 10 parcels, whatever, and then we started subtracting some which may not be suitable from those, and then get down to, I think ultimately a single 5-acre parcel. It'll, what I heard was that the owner will consent to rezoning that parcel, and that will accommodate the density that's required, and then have some realistic technical expectations as well. Can the site, it has to be realistic. I think that's what I heard from the meeting. If there's, will it be in a water district, or is it technically possible to provide water and sewer in the future?
I'm not sure if everyone can see, so just I think it's worthwhile going into the survey because kind of that what Heidi had started and then kind of look at what good from there. But this was a timeline that Heidi has put together just to kind of show us where I know we're struggling with it being summer and then trying to get the community engaged and making sure we get feedback, because we have to have these parcels identified by the end of August. And we need to have our application submitted by the end of September in order for EOHLC to review. They require 90 days, which would be October, November, December. Last time it took the full 90 days. And also would need a bylaw review. Heidi, the bylaw review, is that by our council or is that
So we will want to work it with our council. So the bylaw review, the first one I put in there is planning board looking at it, redoing it, sending it to town council, and then it has an AGO preview that would be sent over to the attorney generals for a preview.
okay. AGO preview November to the end of December, and then as we know that we the warrant starts getting created in December, and by the end of January the select board has requested that final language for the most part be, and complete language be handed over for as part of the warrant package for ahead of the final advisory hearings and the other various hearings. Everything needs to be presented up front, and then of course as hearings go along there's can be tweaks, but for the most part everything is set by the end of January, with public hearings to follow in February, and the advisory bloody Saturdays in March, and then town meeting in April. So while we do need to engage some more kind of community support for this issue, I think we have the biggest takeaway that I have gotten so far from kind of the technical feedback we've gotten from going through this process up to now, and getting some of our questions answered by community scale via Nels Nelson, was kind of what we are required to do. And not that necessarily meeting the bare minimum is always, from a standpoint of wanting to support do the right thing. And also there is an interest in potentially other places for multifamily doing the minimum to get it passed so that we as a town remain in compliance is a direction that some were leaning towards, and potentially using, looking at what options we have for multifamily in small places that would be just under Sherborn's local boards and control and kind of deciding and parameters, if that makes any sense, and not necessarily 3A. So, which would allow for more mixed use, because 3A does not allow for the mixed use that a number of people had expressed interest in. So that was the direction. That's the timeline. Let me pull up the survey questions that Heidi had.
Marion had input with this. She worked with me on some of these.
Okay, yeah, and Marion had some input as well. And I think I know initially I thought, oh, these are very broad, very general, but I think it's, I mean, and I think we
We
look at
can't
this.
see them, Addie. I think
Oh.
in Zoom you have to unshare and reshare.
Okay, let me try it again, sorry.
That's a good schedule, though.
It
Sorry,
just
guys.
begs the question of whether a poll is doable in such a short time frame.
It's the next step on the critical path.
Right. So again, this is, to your point, Steph, that is exactly the challenge that we have here, that we need to somehow provide some kind of education. And I think that's what Marion and Heidi were trying to, when they looked at these, trying to create more of a general type survey question, with the idea that then there would be a secondary survey after we got some kind of general, but this might get people thinking a little bit more and maybe prompt someone to actually go and look at the documents on the website. But I know my first gut was, well, this doesn't follow what was necessarily discussed at the workshop, because the workshop things were more specific. But then again, taking into the feedback we got, people were kind of feeling like we needed to take a step backwards. And so maybe these survey questions are that step backwards to the deciding what direction as a community we do want to go. So I don't know, can you all read these questions?
Yes. Can I share something with you to take these questions and superimpose it on a slightly different format? It's a format that I found online that I thought was really good.
Sure, I will say, Frank, I'm not planning to submit this like this. I would put it into a survey monkey, and it
Yeah,
would
no,
be.
no, but
Oh,
no,
okay.
no, it's not this. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about how to accomplish exactly what it is that you're talking about that somebody else has already done, where we can take some of what they've done and add our questions to that format to accomplish what it is that we need.
So are you asking to share your screen?
Yes. If
Okay,
I may.
I will stop sharing. And then just before I stop, I saw Eric Johnson had his hand raised. Apologies. Eric, did you have something here, or should we?
No, whenever there's an opportunity, I just had a couple of comments on these questions, and I had to change computers because I only heard 1 out of every 5 words people were saying, so I might ask something redundant that's been discussed. For some reason, my other computer was wigging out. So whenever it's appropriate, I don't want to interrupt your current dialogue.
Okay. All right, Frank, I'm going to stop sharing. Frank, why don't you show us what you were looking at, and then maybe we can come back to these questions and look at them, because I'd like to get this survey out as a survey monkey probably by the end of the week. All right, Frank, feel free to share.
Yeah.
Anime, sorry, can I ask, have we had a chance to discuss whether or not we think the survey is a good idea? We kind of seem to be operating under the assumption that we should do this.
I guess not in detail. I mean, at the workshop, I think that there was a number of people in the community who were asking, like, how could they have more input and how could we reach, there was discussion of how do we reach more people townwide. And I don't know of any other way without violating an open meeting and without having another meeting forum, like how do we get people who don't have time to attend a meeting necessarily to kind of weigh in? And so a survey is the kind of best tool we have at our disposal that allows feedback.
Yeah, I did think that at the meeting, there was a sort of a framing of, you know, that there was going to be some kind of a vote at the meeting, you know, and that somehow there was a sort of a democratic process, if you will. And
Right.
I'm not necessarily against the survey, but I am concerned. I mean, if you come back with a survey that 3/4 of the people from the survey say we should not comply and we shouldn't do anything, I mean, what might that leave us? And I'm wondering if there are better educational strategies that don't have the appearance of some kind of a vote.
Outside, I mean, so a survey allows people to kind of state their minds and get a pulse on, and granted, we can't force people to do a survey. I think that's the other rationale for making the questions fairly generic, with the idea that a secondary survey would be shared and potentially if there's a group that goes, whoa, that's not at all what I think, maybe more people would respond to the survey, but at least we would have some sense of numbers of participation. I mean, again, it's like in a public forum, in a meeting, it's hard to get feedback. Some people are wary of maybe saying what they're thinking. It's possible that there'd be, I completely hear what you're saying, Andy, and I guess I just, for lack of another option that but Steve, Constantine, you have some thoughts?
Yeah, so again, I attended the previous meeting and I thought it was a great presentation. I know we talked about the 7 parcels that were in consideration, and I think Eric had one as well. He was looking at 41 North Main and possibly including parts of the downtown with that. I guess I'm not clear on the path. I think Steph said a good thing, that people need to be educated. So I think sending out a survey without people having the correct backup on or understanding of what we're trying to do, what are the options are, might get us into a little bit of jeopardy. So I think we kind of need to talk about, here's where the education piece is. And again, is it 7 parcels? Is it 1 parcel? Is it whatever it is? Make sure people have an understanding of what we're presenting, what needs to be talked about, and what the options are. And then take that and then make sure that when people are filling out the survey, that they've got that either in front of them or at least have a pretty good understanding of it. Because what I'm picking up from the different meetings that I've been to on this is people are just kind of putting their fist down and saying, no, we don't want this, without really understanding that it's something we have to do, that other towns have gone through, and that it's not an ultimatum where we're going to build something. It's just kind of setting up these areas where the building could be. Does that make sense?
Right, do you mind if I show this survey and let's see how far this goes to answering some of the questions that have been raised up to this point?
So
Sure.
Frank, why don't you share, because I think I kind of know what some of your thoughts, and I'm wondering if some of this, I think there could be a marriage of ideas here, where it could be the survey link is sent out with an email from townwide that has a little bit of the prefaced framework of.
Well, let me just go through this survey, and then let's have the discussion, okay? If I just show you this, because I think this will really help in our conversation, and if not, that's fine too. Can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay, so this is another town that has sent this out, but it's for the exact same thing. And if you look at it, what it does is it provides project overview, information about the project, what's going on, the reason why, the planning. And then would you like to review key terms and concepts in starting this? And if you click no, it'll jump over the next thing. And if you pick yes, it'll go to the next thing. And there's, the key terms and concepts of what's going on. So that this survey then, before you even are asked any survey question, provides background and information and benefits and, in kind of a well laid out, easy, obviously some words are going to have to be changed, some text will have to be changed.
I think we could, okay, go ahead.
So, again, it's in the survey, before you even take the survey, it provides that background. Then it starts providing specific information with the maps and, provide some background before asking the questions. And then there's various questions that it asks, whether they're the right questions, whether the questions that we want, that's not the point. Then if they talk about, okay, do you want smaller sized buildings or do you want large, do you want condos? So they give an example of what they could look like. What does a smaller type building look like? What does a townhouse look like? What does a carriage house look like? So I just think it provides really good visuals and really good help within the survey so that it makes it easy. It's going to have 3-story. What does that look like? What is so it's just a template of something that can be followed in
So
creating
two
this.
things, I mean, I think one thing is, I don't know if in 3A we can as a town have design standards, design review guidelines, but I don't think we can put language that dictates the type of multifamily design in our 3A bylaw. And that, given that we're in a crunch, I think our survey would need to be a little bit more streamlined. And I also, I definitely like the way Millis has the education component and then goes into the survey. I don't know how that was designed. Our web, our web design is not, we don't have a web designer. So our IT capabilities are going to be limited. So I could see where we have an education component, we can offer up links, and then we'd have a survey. But it can't be, we wouldn't be able to integrate it in our website the same way that Millis is, at least not in the time constraints that we have. Eric, do you have something to say about this?
On mute. I mean, just to add a couple things that I heard, consider about, like someone mentioned, like, people in the survey might say they don't want to do this at all, or whatever else. I think you can take that right off the table. I think it depends how you present this. You present that we are moving forward to get town meeting approval, to get through this 3A as a planning board. That's our job, and this is what we're doing. And we're getting input. I love the idea of an educational thing, especially the just steal Millis's educational side there. Just change the logo. And I think that's very smart in that. I think it is kind of about controlling the narrative to some degree here. You educate people and you don't leave it that broad. It's my opinion that I voiced when you had the that session, whatever you call it, the last session you had there, that I would put the 7 parcels. I think the planning board did a good job vetting the parcels. I regretted, and I said it afterwards, bringing up 41 North Main, perhaps not a good fit. You have these 7 parcels, they've been vetted. I was a little bit against cutting them down just next. I felt there was still a small amount of people showing up at that meeting, and like the question about should it be in a water supply district or not, it was like a majority of 3 people. I guess that was my concern on like making hard decisions that night and so on. The concept of a survey has worked really well in the planning board in the past. We got hundreds of people responding to it when we did similar type things. Again, I wasn't catching the earlier meeting because my my other computer was just freaking out. But I would still encourage the online survey. It's well advertised. Give it a short window. Give it 3 weeks. you know, whatever it is that they think that people can do it while it's on vacation, to be honest with you. And I wouldn't even like leave options open of like, should we do this or not? Just be like, we are doing this. You know, if they're against it, they can vote it down at town meeting, you know, and that's that. I had some specific comments on the questions you had there. I don't know if now's the right time or not, but and that's it. I would include the 7 parcels. Just include right on there. Which one do you like? You don't have to pick it. Town's not picking it. The planning board can do what they want. If planning board likes the one that's in second place, be like, yeah, we like this one better. It was a close second. You know what I mean? I mean, it's still up to you guys.
Let's see, I'm gonna share the survey questions again here. Where's my share screen? Oops, hang on. All right. Again, these were generalized to kind of prompt and weed out, not that, yeah, people can answer whatever they want and they don't necessarily have to be a Sherborn resident and answer a question. So, and they can say they don't have to be truthful, and we will never know. But I think, like I said, these questions were general with the thought that maybe it would be one survey that was general and then a second survey. Of course, I don't know if we get feedback on a second survey, including all the parcels in the that we had in the workshop. Then I know then there's people that were saying, well, what about this parcel? What about that parcel? So I guess these general questions would allow us to think if there's a preference for parcels that we didn't consider, because some people were feeling that we didn't they didn't get input, and did we broadly consider everything? Again, I know our goals were, there were kind of 3. There was the goal of looking at parcels which, in general, looking at parcels which potentially would meet requirements and pass a town meeting, because that's kind of the priority, is to make sure that we continue to be in compliance. I mean, all of us agree that housing is an important issue. It's just trying to mesh that with planning as a townwide situation. How those 2 goals merge is the challenge. Heidi, if you'll please step in.
Sure, I just want to say, so Eric, the questions, when Mary and I was discussing this, initially we started listing those 7 parcels in here. And then because we didn't want some people saying, well, I wanted this one included or not, we took those 7 parcels and generalized them into already developed, a downtown area, proposed North Water District, and then where the comment was where one has the most potential to be developed there. So those 7 parcels actually fell into the A, B, and C, and D. We just didn't name them out. So if people end up choosing one of them, we're going to know roughly what parcels they're going towards. It would weed it down.
But I just want to kind of, I actually would disagree with Eric. I wouldn't put the parcels for a straight up and down vote. I really think what we're seeking is guidance as to what factors we should take into account in our decision making.
Totally.
And I think question 3 really helps us kind of cover that. And there may be other elements that we might want to consider. But that's what I think would be important. I mean, asking if people who want a development next door or so forth isn't going to be particularly productive. I'd say no to that, and the majority of people are going to say no to that. I think thinking about what's legitimate kind of feedback we can get. Other questions like, things like how important are certain factors to people. So, for example, if there is an owner of a parcel who is interested in and supportive of the rezoning on their parcel, is that important to you? That's yes, it's important. Doesn't matter to me. No, it's unimportant, or something. maybe those are the sorts of things that we can then use and then take the feedback. And then when we go to town meeting, we can explain the feedback that we got and how we used it to come to the recommendation that we made.
And I think the discussion should solely be on choosing a site. So again, starting with a number of parcels, picture it as an inverted pyramid, and then narrowing it down to ideally 1 5-acre site that will support the 78 units, and vetting that site through the process.
That's fine.
Eric, yes, please.
That's quick. And that's fair either way. I mean, we all have, I mean, you're the decision makers. I like the idea of each parcel and you describe the pros and cons of each one, but maybe that's too much, to be honest. I think number 3 is a very good question. My only comments is 4, 5. I'm not sure if there are, the point of this question is kind of gauging people's knowledge. I would almost recommend deleting 4 and 5 and putting that in the educational part. Tell people about consequences or not. Tell people it's not like 40B or whatever, you know what I mean? Versus kind of gauging their knowledge. I like the idea about the one about, like, you know, is the owner supportive of it? You know, there's one that's like that. I think that's also important to things in there. That's my only input there. You know, I still like the idea if you went like 1 page per parcel and the pros and cons, but maybe that's a lot. Number 3 is a great question overall. I'll say that. Number 3 is well worded, well thought out, and might just get you there anyway.
And Heidi, on 4 and 5, I mean, I'm assuming that the educational component was what was the goal on those questions, and if there's a way to have it be part of like either a cover letter or opening statement rather than a survey, or do you believe strongly that, or feel strongly that it should be a survey question for gauging kind of community awareness?
No, this was just trying to put some things on paper to start discussion. It definitely was, it was points we felt people needed to be aware of and maybe try and get educated on. You know, that's why initially, like question 2, we have the link directly to all the documents and the information on our website. And again, too, I'd like to have that, but it was, you know, one of the questions I had aboard on that at the workshop was, you know, is this to create affordable housing? And over half the people said yes. You know, so they're mixing up what the purpose is, and all we're trying to have them realize is like, oh, maybe, you know, why would you ask if multifamily is the same as 40B? You know, maybe it's, you know, just to sign say, oh, maybe it's not. If there's a way to put educational components in it, I think that's great. So
Okay,
it's your survey. I was just trying to put some ideas out on
right.
where to get started.
I think a good question would be, you know, is distance to the commuter rail stations an important factor, or other amenities?
Well, that is part of the requirement of this, that it's supposed to be. So
Well,
that-
but I think that,
But I still think you can interpret the other amenities to then say downtown is fine. And really kind of conceptually, the intent is proximity to MBTA related things, as opposed to whether you can walk to the shops. I mean, I think that's a legitimate thing that, you know, again, to get feedback. And I think question 3 has a lot of good content, but we could potentially be, again, it depends how we want to do this in terms of, you know, is it a rate 1 to 5, or, you know, like, neutral, dislike, or something. They can be broken up into separate elements of questions, so that people can like more than one option on question 3 if you or dislike it, you know.
Yeah, I think 3, if we can make it a kind of a rank your choices, put them in order, I think that'll give us a little bit more
Yeah.
feedback.
Something of that nature, because it's possible to like a couple of those and not really mind and really hate one. And if we can get that kind of feedback in some format, that would probably be very helpful. I do like the idea of proximity to MBTA. You could say that that's a bit of a leading question because there's really only one end of town, which is that, but fine. I mean,
Well,
you know, that
community, we're required to provide the 78 units, and doesn't matter where they go, but
Yeah.
if you could possibly walk to the commuter rail station, that's probably seen as an advantage.
Yeah.
I think that someone suggested, you know, so in addition to this question 3, which is rank your preferences, right, for the location, I think we could have another question. Someone suggested which of the following are important, one being owner support or parcel owner support or parcel owner consent.
Mhm.
But there could be some other things in that category that kind of overlap this question 3 a little bit. So the question would be which are important, and it's owner support, parcel owner support. And then I have a set of things here. One is an earnest effort for viable multifamily housing, right? Because there was this whole divide between like, we could make it hard to build, or we could really promote multifamily housing, you know, make our best attempt for multifamily housing. An earnest effort to be close to transit, which is obviously the MBTA's goal. And then an earnest effort to consolidate dense housing in a town center like area or something. Those aren't the right words, but like, even though there's a little bit of overlap with question 3, it gets to it sort of, and then this would be like select all that apply as far as which is important to you. And it's just a different way of asking for something similar, where someone may not understand the nuances of the proposed North Sherborn Water Sewer District, right? Anyway, but yeah, so it gets at some of the same factors, but asking it in a different way. And I think it's okay if it's a redundant question. So if we're talking about potentially eliminating questions 4 and 5 and 6, and we just have a couple of key questions that get at values and priorities, and we could even put in this one in number 7, not in my neighborhood, right? I mean, that would be a way at getting at question 6 and giving people an outlet to say that without compromising the rest of the survey.
I would, in the not in my neighborhood, I would emphasize a zoning change in my neighborhood.
Right.
Right, because just restating it, because even in the room and in the discussion, people were assuming that the building was going to happen and couldn't understand how you could be doing any kind of rezoning without the consent and the intention of the owner to execute on it. And so I think that kind of language would be good.
Yeah. The other thing is vehicle-wise, I've done Survey Monkeys. I wasn't sure what survey you were looking for, but the ones that are pretty what's the word? Secure in terms of not letting people like bomb a bunch of responses in, tend to be the one that require paid subscriptions. And SurveyMonkey is sort of notoriously difficult to access. My company has like a couple of super users that can create surveys, and I can't volunteer my company's time, but I'm just saying it's not easy, but it is the most eloquent in terms of allowing you to put an information page up front before they even enter the survey, to put some links out there and say, before you even start, consider this. This is it's a very short survey. Do your homework first. And,
I mean, that's kind of what we saw with the Millis, and I think we're limited by IT. I was going to do just a 1-month subscription for Survey Monkey so that we had more tools available to us. But is there another survey service that you can, I mean, that you've used that I could look at? I haven't, right now I've just done the free Survey Monkey just to kind of play with it, but
yeah. So I was wondering, Eric said that he did surveys through planning board in the past, and I'm wondering how. There's always like a Google questionnaire, right, or a Jot form or something like that, but those are less secure in terms of
Survey Monkey does have you get a unique ID so that it can't just get bombed. Right, you can't have someone taking the same survey 10 times.
But can you just, yeah, so potentially anyone with a link can take it though? I mean, it doesn't have to come through an email address? Because I've always distributed my work surveys to like a set email list, right? Whereas if we were trying to put a link on the town website or a link on Nextdoor,
I
then
mean, it was unique when they did it, but I honestly, Gino
I
did
know,
it.
I know it, we had it so that it was unique. I don't know if it was because you had to register your email address in order to take the survey, and I'll look at that. I guess if you don't, I mean, I'll look, I mean, that is definitely, a priority to make sure that this is secure and not just one person stuffing the ballot box.
right,
I mean, Netflix can see your IP address. Can SurveyMonkey see your IP address? I mean,
probably, I would guess.
yeah.
The other thing, do we want to query the person that's taking the survey as to what age they are? Are we interested in what high school students and middle school students, think? And, at what point are we going to take their, them seriously? So do we want an age group? Do we want a length of time in Sherborn? Do we want to have something, in the beginning?
That's a fairly standard question. I think that would make sense here to just have put out a range. It kind of gives us a sense of, like you said, are these students, are these, middle, and yeah, so I think we can, that's easy enough to add.
Should we ask what street they live on just to get a sense of demographic?
I worry that people might not be willing to put their street because that narrows it down.
Yeah.
If you put that question, do you want it in your neighborhood? That'd be
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would include that question honestly, because I think people would would lie.
Well, and they have to type it in. Like a lot of these other ones are putting in a number, something you can easily compile, and it's going to be harder if people have to
Right.
start typing out
Yeah.
all kinds of
Yeah.
streets. And the other suggestion I was going to make is, do you want to have some hard copies that we put at the COA or the library for a bunch of people who don't go on Nextdoor and want to fill it out?
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, very good.
Your input's been really valuable.
Is Nextdoor the only vehicle we're planning on using to get this out?
I'm sorry. I mean, next door, Sherborn would be one way, but also I would ask, Jeannie has, or as a town, we have people who subscribe to information, and that would be something that, would go through that townwide email. Anyone who has subscribed to get information, town updates by email, they would get this survey.
I mean, as we all know, though, next door isn't unique to Sherborn. We all get messages from surrounding towns.
I cancelled Nextdoor a long time ago. It's dreadful.
You can also target it
So-
only to Sherborn residents. You can
Yeah.
target a message only
Right.
to be received by people within Sherborn, and a lot of people don't check that box.
Yeah. Just on the age rate, I mean, is there a what's town hall voting eligibility? Is that a more relevant question? Are we interested in truly in the demographic information, or is it useful to know whether somebody's eligible for town meeting?
All I was trying to say is that we should make sure that we're getting the input from those that we want the input from. And if we don't want it from middle schoolers, then we should, do something to indicate that they either are or they are not.
I'm just doing 10 years because it's an easy, but I could we could do 18 to 30.
Do 30 to 50. It's like generational almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
31
think
to
that
50.
it's more. And or sorry, 30, I guess that would be 31. Oh, wait, 18 is fine because
Is
it's under
18.
18. And then. It's-
How about 50 plus?
What, 50 plus?
51 plus.
Yeah.
Okay, that's probably,
How much segregation do we need up there?
yeah, no, I agree. I don't want to make it so crazy. I agree. Keep it simple. All right. I guess so my question is, knowing that we are in this time crunch, is how does everyone feel about I could work with Heidi just to kind of take some of the language that and use and take a look also at the Millis language and see if we can borrow some of that educational and craft it in an opening section, you know, in lieu of 4, 5, 6, and then sending this survey out with that with these questions that we discussed tonight, just, you know, maybe grammatically cleaned up. Is everyone comfortable with that? I do feel like we do need to get something out sooner than later. And we could wordsmith things to death. It may not be perfect, but getting something out there and having an opportunity for getting some feedback and a conversation more wide is probably the more important than having it be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to show the types of housing. I would agree with that. I
Yeah.
think if you have a diagram that shows the density, this is what 78 units on 5 acres looks like.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah. Do we want to offer a dialogue box? I like the idea that the questions are going to have numerical answers that we can compile and integrate easily, but do we want to offer space for people to say something, whatever they want to say? And that's also kind of feedback, like, I don't understand all of this stuff, or you know, or you know, whatever it is. That's also another. I think that's a fairly easy option to do. You know, do you have any other comments or things you'd like to communicate?
Yeah, you could do an optional email address too if they want to hear back from us. I don't know if that's practical either, though. The other thing that oh gosh, Eric noted in his comments was that for question 3, instead of a ranking, have each of those be a score at 1 through 5, with 5 being most important. So you could have 2 5s and a 1 instead of, you know, a first choice, second choice, third choice. So it would be scoring each 1 through 5. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying. I saw that and I was kind of trying to process my head what direction that makes sense. That's a good idea.
Stephen has a hand raised.
Any further discussion, or are we okay to move on to?
Stephen has his hand
Oh,
raised.
I'm sorry, Stephen. So you fell out with the screen share, you fall off. So please.
Yeah, I keep coming back to the education piece, and I'm just wondering if it would make sense to have a live education part, kind of have what Millis had, but put that into a PowerPoint and have a session where folks can join in from the town, walk through that with the knowledge that after you get through that, then there's going to be an open survey for, like you said, maybe 3 weeks. I guess what I'm
I mean, I
concerned
think
about
our
is-
workshop that we sent out a townwide mailing to everybody, and we have posted documents on the town website, was an attempt at trying to do a broader education, and people are busy, and it is, you know, again, we are in a time crunch. So,
So Annie Mae,
Understood.
what if Stephen, what if with this link, you put a link instead of to all the documents in the website, that you do a link to that slideshow?
so I'm sorry. So I know we have, Heidi's got all of the documents in.
Right, and this is a link to all the documents, but instead of giving a link to all the documents, give a link to the key document, which might be the slideshow, might be something else. One of the other documents that provide that information.
Yeah, I don't think the slideshow is necessarily a good thing to link to, because it's got the 7 parcels, and I'm not saying that we should hide those, but I also don't think that that's not the focus of the
that there are some other documents that are in that whole list of things that, you know, 'cause there's what, about 20 links there. Instead of
Oh,
somebody going through 20 links, give them the one link in those 20 links that they really should look at in preparation for doing this survey.
yeah.
I think the front end of the PowerPoint was pretty good at explaining what 3A is. And
Yeah,
what-
do you have the PowerPoint, Addie May? You could just,
Oh, let's see here.
no, I don't mean pull it up. I mean, if you have the file.
Yeah,
you can PDF the first 10 slides or whatever it was.
yeah, I mean, I think we could take some of that and maybe that image and add it to make the survey look more interesting potentially. Again, I have to look at what our graphic options are, but think like, you know, I do agree with kind of like what you said with Millis, having some graphic element is more appealing. Of course, trying to make it so that people feel like this is a quick survey and not overly time consuming is important too. But I
And the important part of that again is you don't have to build it. It's just making it clear that it's rezoning an overlay district.
Maybe just a little bit beyond that, Jim, I think, because there's been a lot of news on this, on the you know, chatter on the news about, you know, different towns fighting it and this and that, you know, there should be a little bit potential more information for those who want that more information. If you don't want it, you just go right over it or don't read it and just go into the survey. If you're in the survey and you question and you want to go back, you can go back and get the information that you need.
Yeah, and like I said, I think the front end of that PowerPoint was pretty good at explaining the essence of 3A.
Yeah.
And just it deletes the specific sites after that, but it got into a little bit on different types of housing, which I thought was good. There was some diagrams which attempted to explain that, but not asking anyone to make a decision like the Millis document, the Millis website does.
all right, let's given it's 8 o'clock. If we are comfortable with, if everyone's okay with the kind of where we're at with based on everyone's feedback, moving on, because I know that part of the meeting tonight, the goal was to work through some of these agenda, I mean, not agenda, but the kind of goals and long-term work of the planning board. Is everyone comfortable with where we're at?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. Heidi, I know I didn't do this priority survey. I was like, I tried to get to it and then I like couldn't get it to open on my computer. Let's see if I can open it now. I know we have kind of had this priorities list going. Thank you to those who did look at this.
I have it open if that's helpful.
You have it open? Okay.
It
Feel
just
free
has
to
my,
share stuff.
it has my comments in it. So for what it's worth.
Or I have, I think I have a
Oh, I can
compiled
open a
one.
blank. I can open a blank version. Why
I've
don't I
got
do that?
a compiled one, I believe, so. Let's see, is this showing up?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's showing up. And
Okay.
I had only heard back from 2 people, so I put, you know, the one person's and then a comma and the next person's ranking. So we only have 2 rankings, but you can go around and see what people think. And biggest one is get people to volunteer to take on some of the topics.
So at the bottom right, Addie May, there's like says 100%. If you move that little slider, it might make it easier to read those words.
Oh, yeah, let's see here.
Go further right. There you go. Down, 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 down.
Oh,
There you go. That's the one.
the Zoom? Is that easier?
Oh yeah. Now you can see it.
Okay, apologies. All right, so here's just kind of to rattle off the list of things that we have discussed as a board kind of in recent months is of things that we'd like to take on. We've got planning and development issues such as the town center future vision, implementation of affordable housing, so and always ongoing Community Preservation Act, education leading up to the election, because remember, we town meeting voted to accept it, but the way Community Preservation Act works, it was not a question on the May ballot, it's on the November ballot, Heidi. Okay, so Community Preservation Act, the town will be asked to vote on that in November, so there is an educational component to be considered there to prepare voters for November on that. 40B getting to and maintaining safe harbor. So those are issues under planning and development.
How
Then
are 2 and 4 different?
which one?
Lines 11 and lines 10 and 12. I know that there's a subtle difference, but would the actions be similar on that?
I mean, implementing affordable housing could be
The inclusionary bylaw,
by inclusionary
Mhm, there's-
bylaw. It could be, small. It could be just in general something to do with our existing affordable units, whereas 40B is and safe harbor are somewhat different potentially. It's just different approaches, I guess. So it would be different goals potentially. Bylaw discussion, we are, as we spent the previous hour talking about the MBTA 3A overlay district bylaw that we have a mandate to have created and have prepared for next town meeting. The zoning housekeeping issues that the previous building inspector, Chris Canny, had brought to our attention as being some kind of quirks and nuances in the zoning, which have been, the way they're written, maybe have some unintended consequences, which if we cleaned them up would make things more straightforward.
Yeah, that was a little unclear.
The battery energy, is that what?
Storage system.
Storage system bylaw, which we've been talking about with solar and those issues, and then the solar bylaw update with evolving best practices, affordable housing and anti-segmentation language. Whether there's some things that it's come to our attention that maybe there's some language. Again, like any bylaw, there's the process for amending and updating is available because things change and lessons are learned. So there's already potential language that we would want to consider updating. Groundwater protection bylaw, making sure that kind of a review of all our bylaws, making sure that new bylaws are aligning with existing bylaws. The question of what should be in bylaws versus the rules and regulations. Farm events bylaw and rules and regulations update. So again, all of those ideas and topics are falling under bylaw discussion. Then there's the rules and regulations and procedures, updating all of the application forms. As we've seen, we've got forms for how, for different permitting processes or review processes. Some of our forms have outdated information, and some of them we're using the same form for multiple different, and are there ways to make that more straightforward and easier and user friendly? The tree manual, kind of the discussion on that. I mean, we have the last formally approved tree manual, I believe, is 2005, and then there is a 2017 update, but I have not found an official adoption of that 2017 draft. And when I came on planning board, I know there was working on it, and then it got contentious and a little bit put to the side. Creating a permitting checklist sign off to make things kind of more transparent on all sides for where things stand and what the process is, and updating the permitting procedures manual, which I believe there's no editable version of that. And I think the last version is 2001 potentially, or so kind of, again, trying to make it easier for people to understand what they need to do to be in compliance if they want to add a garden shed or any process that they want to do, trying not to make things so difficult in Sherborn. which is not necessarily something that no one intended to make things so difficult in Sherborn. It's just sometimes it's the nature of over time things get convoluted as things are amended, and not a review is not done. Okay, so then the topic of streets and pedestrians, prioritization plans, the complete streets project and grant. We have our current prioritization plan is from 2017. I know Heidi and I had attended a conference on the process for grants, and you know, we already have a prioritization plan, so we're ahead of some towns, and we've been successful in getting grants, but there's since a number of projects have been checked off over the last couple of years, maybe there's a need to reorder some of the prioritization or review our prioritization plan. The discussion on Western Avenue traffic calming. Then there's also been discussion over the last year on Coolidge Street traffic calming. There's always discussion on sidewalks and crosswalks connections and safety. So potential work for the planning board to review process, review, where priority again. Downtown traffic improvements, rail trail connection, and property acquisition been something that's been out there for a number of years. ADESA permit conditions and the use of those funds. So again, these are all things that we've talked about over the last year. A number of them are things that we've all done work on as a planning board over the last couple of years. But there's only so many hours in everyone's day and only so many meetings in a month. And, so I know it's a struggle. So this was an attempt to try and kind of ensure that we have a path forward and decide where people's interests lie. And as Heidi said, maybe divvy up if there's, identifying who has the most interest in something and whether they want to kind of take it as a side project and work on a piece and then bring it back to the board, because we can't all work on everything. I mean, we can work on things at the end stage, and we have to, as a planning board, deliberate things before, accepting and voting. But there's some things that the research and the homework and even some of the kind of language can be done as a homework by individuals or by even a team of two.
I had some questions about this that will influence my ranking. I've done a most of my ranking, but I had some questions. So on the CPA education, how much are other boards doing with relation to this? I mean, this really seems like an advisory select board type of issue to me. And I was wondering how critical is the planning board's role or perspective in educating on CPA funding?
I mean, my gut check says that just doesn't need to be its own separate project. But I think more to your point of what are other boards doing, having someone be kind of, I guess, checking. I don't know if anything gets mailed out ahead of the ballot or if there's any information or way to just remind people when they go to the ballot in November, oh, hey, remember, you voted on this as a town to support this in April. This is again why we agreed, why the majority agreed that they wanted CPA, because it provides a somewhat easy way to adopt funds to be used for recreation resources, historic preservation resources, and so I guess that's where it falls under planning, because thinking of, the planning board and the master plan and thinking of the community and what resources are important to either add or build or so.
But you know what, if the 7 different boards that are touched by that to independently have separate educational efforts, I mean, ideally there'd be some, single Sherborn based informational piece that would support the ballot question. Right. So I guess as a board that's touched by this, we have a responsibility to reach out and understand what we're doing as a town. But it's not our unique responsibility to come up with a specific deliverable, I would say.
Right. I
No,
know,
I
But
guess
it-
I
but
envisioned
it's-
that. Okay,
I know we've discussed CPA on the historic commission. I don't think there was any educational initiative that we were going to drive forward, but
But
Yeah.
somebody should, right? And so I
Yeah.
guess I'm just asking, like, how do we, I mean, I can have a conversation with Stephen, who is the advisory advocate for it. And just sort of see what, he's got his ear to the ground. He really wants this to pass. I could just kind of see what he's thinking. But it's more of a coordination thing, not an educational production thing, right? It's like, how can the
Right.
planning board support you kind of thing?
I think that's it.
no, I envisioned there'd be a letter that would come out from the planning board, perhaps to the select board. The planning board supports the CPA because it would be blah, blah, blah,
Oh.
blah, blah for the town. So I guess that's what I saw as education was, it would be, just basically a letter from the planning board on,
So you're not talking about voter education.
But that's not education unless it's
Yeah.
pushed out somehow by some entity, right?
right.
the real question and concern is how is it funded and how's it going to impact taxes
How is what funded? The education?
of the CPA?
So-
That's where people's concern lie.
Well, let's, I mean, if we go through each line at this rate, we're going to be here till 11
Yeah.
o'clock, right? So,
Right.
I like Steph taking an action to kind of see if there's something going on,
Yeah.
and so on, and maybe we can leave it at that.
So, and I think the time base is really an important thing also that we need to put on here, because I mean, we could say that it's not a high priority, but it's something that needs to be done in a vast time frame.
Yeah.
So I kind of pick my priorities that I listed on here as, things that are both important and that we need to get done, pretty quickly versus things that, could be done next year or versus things that could be done in 5 years.
I think that's a really important point. I mean, I would almost, rather than ranking, I'd say what do we aspire to get done in the third quarter? What do we want to get done by the end of the fourth quarter? And maybe first half of next year and second half of next year. That gives us a sort of 4 buckets of time, and then in terms of the kind of assignments, we should, obviously want to populate the ones where we want to get that done this year as a priority.
I just noted for the zoning housekeeping issues from Chris Canny, we would probably want to have that kind of by the end of November if we were actually going to put forth anything as a zoning warrant article. Any zoning updates need to be a warrant article. So we're on that same agenda schedule. I mean, I'd say November instead of like the MBTA is at September because of the other various review boards that the AG's office and the EHLC office. But
Is Chris Canny still around or?
he had he was commuting quite a distance to work for Sherborn, and he had a job opportunity with a much closer community commute for him. So right now we have Bob Fogarty is our building inspector, who also he's serving Sherborn as well as Holliston. So he's
But Chris is actually still around. So that's why
Okay,
I was
that's-
putting this on
Okay.
here.
Yeah, is he available?
He's available to discuss this. That's why I might make it due October in case, just because right now
Okay.
they don't really. Bob is only doing inspections, so
Okay.
he's not.
Oh,
So they
okay,
kind
I
of
didn't
have
realize.
kept.
So I have a good relationship with Chris. I'm happy to meet with him.
Yeah.
I mean, we have before you do that, we have his proposals of
Right.
what needs to be changed, right? So we have language that he's proposed. And I think that there was a sticky piece around the lot width, that I think is going to be the hardest part of this. Right. So a lot of his changes are very straightforward and make sense, and we should probably just do them. But one of the changes he suggested, the planning board tried to start in on that a couple of years ago and went in a lot of circles on how to address lot width.
Right.
So
But
I
if
don't
he
know
wants to-
that it's just
he wants- If he wants to come in and present to us
He-
some thoughts on that,
he did.
He did. We had a detailed presentation with Chris in what, January? And I believe it was recorded on Zoom, that meeting. I guess its question is what I think that meeting he was on Zoom. Was it January?
If Jim wants to take this to follow up, that'd be great.
But I think the follow-up that's needed is some really technical planning thought about lot width. So whoever wants to, I just don't think it's coordination with Chris that's necessarily the
Yeah.
main task at hand. I think it's really digging into like calculations of lot width and language that's more clear in a bylaw.
I guess not knowing all the nuances of this issue.
would one potential channel for solving this be looking at other towns, similar towns?
There was an effort that was done several years ago to look at how to define lot width.
Yes, and it's convoluted, and I do believe that Jim, are you? I'm happy to sit to off to the side, Jim, bring you up to where we were when Chris kind of what Chris has educated us on this thus far, and just given your kind of architecture background, if you might have a better ability to see the nuances. I know there was a number of discussions on using squares versus circles, and it might be something that you'll be able to see clear.
It might be
clear
something
as
you
day.
hate the least.
No, I've confronted some of this in the past, but again, I don't know all of the issues here, but I'm happy to step in, as well as the affordable
All right,
housing.
so Jim, you're it, and like I said, I will look for the meeting where Chris came, and I hope that I thought it was a Zoom, and it may not be, but I'm hoping it was a Zoom, and we can find that, and I can update you on the history of where planning board's been with that in the past.
Right.
And
Right.
okay,
I feel like I should also step into some of the affordable housing issues, getting to maintaining safe harbor. I don't know if I want to lead that, but certainly I'm involved with that, as well as implementing affordable housing, being on the trust now as well.
I also felt like it's interesting how different the rankings are between the two I can see and the one that I have on my own screen here. They're kind of all over the map, which is fascinating to me. But I feel like there's an urgency also to line 20, which is the affordable housing anti-segmentation language, simply because there's so much development going on right now, and that lack of clarity in the language, or that lack of language in the bylaw, is a vulnerability point to me.
Should 10, 12, and 20 be done together and then each bullet prioritized by the people working on it as to which bits to tackle?
I'm sorry, Andy, say that again. What?
Line 10, 12, and 20 are in a sense related to affordable housing.
Right.
And if we assign an individual or individuals to be responsible for those three, and then they can tackle them in priority order or urgency order as they see fit.
Just do a right click. And then you can insert.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so as far as the anti-segmentation language, I'll take that one on, if that's okay, just since that bylaw probably, I think I spent some of the most, other than Heidi, spent the most time reviewing and looking at. So I will look to figure out what language we need to bring back to town, bring back to our board for determining whether we agree is something that we want to try and bring to town meeting.
I think the battery energy storage system planning for our town and bylaw are very important. So is solar. I think that's it is our future. We have, the second most important mandate from the state, other than housing, is energy efficiency and getting to our energy goals in 2035 and 2050. And I sorry, say 2030 and 2050, that really needs to be done. And I think we need to get ahead of the curve on some things because it could really be a huge benefit. So one of the questions I was going to ask is how many bylaws is it realistic to have at the annual town meeting? Because I'd certainly like to do the
It depends on how complicated everything is, but we probably, 3 to 4 is really the max. That's a lot to undertake. Of course, we do have we don't have any choice, but we have to bring forward 3A. That's one. I don't know, Chris Canny's zoning updates, housekeeping. I don't know if we think of that as, I think that could be kind of 2, because I think they kind of all, I think of those ideas that he brought forward, I think there were maybe 4 ideas and 3 of them were like slam dunk. And then the lot width is the only issue that really seemed to stand out as one that would require some education potentially. I don't know if anyone disagrees or has other thoughts.
Agree. I'd like to see if we can do the battery energy storage bylaw for.
All right.
We have the solar bylaw.
So why don't you take a look again? I think if people take a chunk to do their homework on some of these, then we can this part of having this list it will enable us to kind of give this is our framework for focus, and we can check in. And that's why if we divide this up a little bit, then based on interests, then we can in the fall, that's when we've got to present language. So if we have language for review, then we'll say, okay, yes, we're going forward with this, or no, we're not. I guess it's our starting point. So Frank, if you want to take a stab at that language.
Yes, under 17, put my name.
Let's see. So Steph, you've got some action items. Jim's got action items. I've got kind of, one. I don't know, the tree manual. I know Town Forest Committee reached out to me asking for where things stood with the tree manual. So my inclination is to, I guess I would take that on, and only in as much as check in with the town forest and I guess open space. But
I'm happy to help with that if some work needs to be done to follow up to close the deal. That sounds like it's 95% there, and right,
yeah.
we just need to push it over the finish line. But I think it'd be good to have. It's not necessarily a huge priority, but it seems close.
Yeah, I think it's like a lot of things that we do where, things don't get finalized, drafts don't get finalized because everyone's trying to have the perfect document. And it'd be good to see if we could, like you say, push it over the edge potentially and have a document that's more updated than 2005.
Yeah.
I guess actually, I don't know, I can check in with, like I know Town Forest has asked to see what the documents are, and I've only shared them today. So my thought was to circle back with them and see what their thoughts were based on that draft from 2017 and use that as a launch point to see You know, is this something that's got a lot more work to do, or if it's something that we could say, okay, everybody's kind of in agreement here, and there may be 2 or 3 things that need a, you know, review, and we bring it back to our board. So I'll circle back with everyone on that and the status. And I,
Heidi, for the battery energy storage, can I be put on the agenda for September? Because I won't be able to join a August planning board meeting.
Sure.
So I'll have a draft of the battery energy storage bylaw, and I'll have a presentation.
these 3 kind of go hand in hand, the permitting checklist, the permitting procedures manual, and updating the application forms. To me, they're kind of part of housekeeping, and if we get them cleaned up, they're not warrant article scenarios as far as I understand, right? Heidi, is there anything that you foresee these? No, so they're more just
No.
getting the document cleaned up, trying to get language, and you know, some of them we have old PDFs that might need to be retyped and then brought back to the board to review of whether the language makes sense. So I guess there's kind of rules, regulations, procedures, process stuff. I'll kind of assign myself to make an initial stab, work with Heidi on that. Any other issues that anyone's kind of that's jumping out at anyone that otherwise I think we kind of have everyone's got work to do. I mean, there's only so many hours in a day and only so many.
So we'll give Rob the streets and pedestrians.
Yeah.
Yes, I was gonna say, what do we want to hand Rob? He didn't make it today, so.
He was doing the rail trail stuff too, right?
Right, right.
I had
Yes,
a question about the complete streets prioritization.
Yeah, that's a great one. I was
what-
going to mention that too.
What is this something that needs to be updated and filed for the purpose of being able to apply for grants?
not
Only-
necessarily.
Yeah, not necessarily, because I mean, our prioritization plan there's no requirement that we do things that we request grant money for things in order that they were prioritized in 2017. I guess, you know, someone looking at it and saying, oh, wow, there's a major intersection or a major complete streets oriented goal that's completely missing from the plan, which at the moment I can't think of any. It was pretty well generalized. It's just the order might be different.
I think of it more as not necessarily reprioritizing, but we should go through that again. But in my thoughts, it's more like, what is our next project, so we can start writing the grant, because this summer, you know, the next grant that we're getting from Complete Streets is going to be done, and then we'll have the ability to apply for another Complete Streets grant. And you know, hate to leave
Yeah,
money.
we have 2 years before we can apply again anyway, though, because of the way the money and the rolling, because so much of it was because we had the sidewalk, and we did the sidewalk in 2022, and then in 2023 we got the I think 300 and something we got the balance. It's a $500 rolling, and when I did the calculations, it's an every 4 years you can apply. And so we have to go, I think it's like 4 years from 2022 that we can basically I know we can't apply anyway next year. So that's why
we
it's
put
not
that
a
on the
priority.
A
20
proportion has to fall off before we can apply for the next part. But that also is mainly Jeremy and Sean are really heavily driving this as well, so we might have some input, but it's really gonna come down to they're gonna have the big input on the project.
And I think that sounds like then it's something we can kind of put off till 2025. I mean, I
Yeah.
sort of feel like that one and the downtown traffic improvement, I think there's something to be said to like see how the Maple Street roundabout functions, because it'll be interesting to see what that does to traffic flows on Main Street, in my opinion.
Well, the downtown traffic improvement, we just are getting a huge design grant for 2716, and that's coming in October.
With federal
So-
funds, right?
Federal funds, yeah. So that will be something to look at, but that's going to be hiring a consultant. And again, it's mainly going to be, I think, coming through Sean and Jeremy at that point as well. But we should be aware of it because we do want to look at pedestrian and bike safety going through downtown. Like, our things will be consulted as far as could there be improvements.
Another one I had a question on, Addie May, is, and I'm asking you specifically because, is the farm events bylaw in the rules and regs? Because I never saw the changes that Will was proposing. And I'm curious, I know that, you know, this is a point of contention and a point of a vulnerability and a point that needs clarification, especially. Am I allowed to say the word lawsuit in an open meeting like this? I mean, I don't know how
It's
much.
fact.
Yeah, it's fact.
So
Yeah.
I worry that, like, if there's still a remaining situation there that needs to be addressed, like.
I think there's a remaining situation there that should be addressed. The direction of how it should be addressed is, I think I mean, it's pretty factual, is somewhat hinging on where the direction of litigation
ruling.
goes
Yeah.
to decide, to help us assist with where our focus is, whether it's on the bylaw or whether it's on the rules and regs clarification. And so that's where we're in a little bit of treading water here.
Okay.
But can we state that no action until date X? But
Well-
then it needs urgent action, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no action until the litigation ruling, but I do think that we should have in hand what Will had proposed, his notes, before.
I'm trying to think of what notes we're discussing. I mean, I know
He said rules and regs updates, and he had some specific.
And
He had
came
made
up
his
with
own
them as
notes,
well.
but yeah, and does anyone have it? Because I don't have, I had tried his email, but it was, cut off. So I don't have a home email or number for him.
I mean, I can look in the
Anyone
school
else does?
directory, but yeah,
I kind of think even what his notes are, and it's not as urgent right now. I do think it'd be good to get, but I think until we find out the litigation direction,
Yeah.
it could even change what he was saying. It might.
Yeah, the action is get the notes and then wait.
right. So
Yeah.
I'll put my note that I will try to get old notes so that they're available for when the time comes to serve as a baseline for some potential language changes, since that was his forte on legalese language.
Yeah, agreed. I miss it.
All right. Well,
So, well, I'm just want to comment on the streets and pedestrians. I think it'd be useful just to maybe the action for Rob is to review and prioritize where our next
yeah,
action
Andy,
might
you,
be.
you are our associate member. There's nothing stopping you from taking on a homework assignment. You
I
can't
know,
vote,
yeah.
but you can do everything else.
I know. Well, I've been look, so I could certainly, I could work with Rob, I guess, on that, on collectively kind of thinking about these different pieces and what the next priority action might be. I think
Yeah,
Steph's
Jeremy
point
did-
about
Jer-
waiting and seeing on some aspect is very relevant for sure.
Jeremy did ask me to look into sidewalks and crosswalks. So I guess you could even put me down for that part. He did want me.
Heidi, you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't.
It's okay.
Seriously, sorry.
You got it.
Just put,
Got it
just
in
put
Right.
Molly.
front. To overpower.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So Andy, I'm sorry. Where am I putting you down?
I mean, I just think it's useful in this block of things to figure out what's the next most important thing to pay attention to in the streets and pedestrians one. So
So looking at the prioritization plan, you mean?
I don't quite know yet what I mean. All I'm saying is there are 6 or 7 ideas here. We can't do all of them. What are these different pieces and which might be the one to focus on?
All right, you go have at it and come back to us. All right, I think we're in a pretty good, we've kind of got this started. Everybody's got a piece of the pie to work on, and we'll kind of see how far people get to will help us, we get the next meeting. Speaking of next meeting, all right, so are we good with, can I stop share and then I'll share this document with everybody?
Yep. So you can
I should actually, let's see, it's saved. Okay, good.
are you gonna share that that spreadsheet with us?
Yes, I'll send out this spreadsheet just the way it looks right now, rather ugly, but at least information is collected, captured, whatever, the thoughts, the general. I mean, I'm not going to spend any time to make it pretty right now, but
No,
I will
perfect.
share that by
You
the
don't
end
need perfect. You
before
don't
I
need to
leave
do it.
here. Okay, so but we do have schedule for the rest of the year, or I mean, I guess the rest of it is kind of the year, but really this summer. If we send out the survey, as we all discussed with the updates that the input that we all provided, and an educational component as part of that survey, and making sure it's as secure as we can make it process. And then I believe we have August 13th is our next scheduled meeting. And I guess in order to, we have to, Heidi, why don't you actually step in, because you've been thinking about the timeline and what we need to accomplish and how we need to accomplish this.
I was thinking August 13th, and I know Frank can't make it, but we're really stuck with dates here, is to make another invitation for the town to come in, hear the results of the survey, hear some more thoughts of, this is what the planning board is looking to do. And again, answer any other questions people might have on MBTA community, just to try and get some involvement, but not bring in a consultant in, just make it more of a planning board discussion. Send out a little note again to every person in town that to please attend this. We will be discussing MBTA and any updates on it.
Would we want to check with cable TV and see if they'd want to, instead of having it be a hybrid meeting, just make it in person and a recorded meeting? I don't know. The hybrid we're not quite there as a town in our technology.
Up to you guys, yeah.
What do you guys think?
I agree. At least
Or do we?
that way you could have a video of it, and that you can send that out as well, or at least have it on the town website so people can see it who couldn't make it.
I mean, Steph, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you think we have the ability to make the hybrid? I only ask you because I know you have the most experience with other meeting settings where hybrid has worked. I don't know. I think most of us agree that right now what we have is not working great. It's okay if you're having a small group, but when you have multiple people trying to speak.
I mean, it looked like from the meeting notes, which I opened, that there were a number of people participating by online at that hybrid meeting. Did a bunch of them leave, or did they all stay on? I mean, if they stayed on, that's kind of an indication that it was tolerable.
Right.
I mean,
Majority sitting on.
yeah, I guess the cable option is not ideal to me. I
Yeah.
think a hybrid is more effective than a cable, just where we are in society today.
And I guess the question is, I mean, ZBA meetings to me are a good example of Zoom working well. I know it's not it's nice to be able to have discussions in person. I don't know what people feel about, do we try to do hybrid? Is it worth doing hybrid, even though it's really hard to figure out who's speaking the way our room's set up in the town hall and to follow a conversation. But I guess for anyone who's in person, it's a nice conversation. So I don't know,
mean,
There needs to be someone to manage that. Someone that's not-
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If there was a moderator and more enforcement of like not just jumping in and talking randomly.
or even stating if there's a question from someone on Zoom, because it's hard to see that screen and follow what's happening when you're in the room.
Yeah, I guess, right. I mean, and I guess, I struggle with, being real super formal and not wanting to cut off people's conversation. But I think it would be fair to say that, to set the ground rules up front, that because of the hybrid nature and the nature of it being difficult to tell who's speaking for anyone who's watching or participating remotely, that we would need to set more clear kind of rules for the meeting process and ensure everybody states their name and their address and be more formal in order to ensure everyone is able to tell who's speaking, just because that seems to be the biggest limiting factor.
Maybe we have a microphone set up and say, if you have a question, step up to the microphone, introduce your name, like, or at the table, like ask them to come up to
Yeah.
the table like they do in some meetings.
Okay. Well, then maybe we can move forward. We'll do hybrid again, which does enable some people to participate who can't make it in person, and be more follow, the Robert's rules much more clearly.
And this is at the August 13th meeting.
Yeah,
Yes.
So the survey is issued before then.
correct. So
Are the results available before then?
Well, we're trying to get the survey out this week, by the end of this week. So that, and we were thinking a 3-week window, in which case,
I don't
we
know,
would have
maybe, I mean, I'm also overwhelmed. Just, I mean, the August 13th is not my optimal, it's in the middle of a camp that I'm helping run.
Can you guys
So,
put up the 3A schedule, the flow chart schedule that you had again? Patty Mae, I think you shared it earlier. I'm just trying to see how it all fits in.
there's maybe August 13th and we then add another meeting in August to do
Oh,
the
late August though would be so hard to get anyone to participate.
Yeah. Is everyone able to see the,
yes.
Who's our technical support for putting, do we have technical support for putting together the bylaw?
we do, that's community scale, right? Am I correct, Heidi, on that? Community
Yeah.
scale is assisting with the bylaw language. So the bylaw
Oh.
language, the language in it of itself was not terribly problematic with, so we have a decent first draft. We're not starting from scratch, which is nice. It's the biggest challenges were the parcels selected.
So the contract with community scale that I saw was very basic and it only got through the workshop, but there's another contract.
That was
through-
right, because of the
Yes.
funding sources being different. One,
Yep.
we used funding sources from for outreach for community scales workshop. And then we were, at the time we signed that contract, we didn't have yet the full kind of green light from MHP or technical assistance for a second round here, essentially. So we do have that now. So that's a different, the technical assistance. So so
And it needs to get vetted through our town council. That was the piece that was missing before as well.
When's the September meeting for the planning board?
September, it'd be the first meeting it'd be, I guess, September 3rd, which is right after Labor Day. or the 17th, which is Columbus Day, so it's probably not, or you're sorry,
No,
is that a
can't
holiday?
be.
No, I'm sorry, my eyes are
No.
bad. It's not a, it's a citizenship day. It's not a real I mean, it's a, I guess it's on a calendar, but not a real holiday. Sorry.
The third, September 3rd is primary election day, so it wouldn't be something
Right.
that we could have a, you know,
Yeah, we
something
wouldn't
in
have,
town hall.
No, we couldn't do that. We might have to do either the 10th or the 4th, if we want to do a different day, but while you're talking schedules, it was going to be in my town planner reports, but we have an A&R that's probably coming our way, and it could possibly work for August 13th. It might have to be sooner depending on when it gets filed, if we have to do it within 21 days. So if it does, we would have to have a short in-person meeting to approve an A&R and sign off. It doesn't have to be in person. I just have to get everyone's signatures. So,
all right. So I guess here's the question. I feel like August 13th to have a meeting with good turnout is going to be a challenge. And also just kind of having, I feel like it, I guess I don't know, which is, chicken cart before the horse, and if we have the survey results, is there a way to share those somehow? I feel like if we had an August 13th meeting with just the planning board and we had the survey results, we could come up with some way that we could collate and share ahead of a wider audience participation meeting. I mean, certainly it's an open meeting, August 13th, anyone can attend, but one
I
that
mean,
we
why
would,
would we have a public workshop now with the survey results rather than digest the survey results, come up with the bylaw, and incorporate the survey results as part of the storytelling in warrant article outreach?
then you're not going to have any more public input, and it seemed like there needed to be
Okay.
an acknowledgement of more
Right.
of a public, a community outreach level. If you're saying you've already done all the work and you're just going to present, well, here's our work and here's our bylaw, which has the parcel picked, that, I think sharing the survey results with people would be a little more transparent.
I don't know, unless we,
So if we get the survey results and the planning board picks a parcel, how is the community going to participate in choosing a parcel if they're already done that by doing the survey?
That was I was kind of thinking maybe we've translated the input participation from a meeting into a survey. And I agree with you, Heidi, it's more transparent to have it, but does it have to be, like, does it have to fall in August? Right? If we do the survey, we get the results, and then,
yeah, I mean, we could make sure that the agenda for our August 13th meeting is clear that we will be reviewing the survey and identifying parcels based on the survey for the bylaw language, to kind of, for anyone who's interested, to be sure they could attend. It wouldn't be it wouldn't be advertised as kind of the way we did in June, but
I
still
mean, we could also in the survey, in the front matter of the survey, say, we are hoping to close the survey on X date and discuss this at the planning board meeting on August 13th, check the agenda, and put the onus on the people who want to come and who are interested in the results to then.
I just know we kind of made a statement at that last meeting that we will be holding another session. And that's my only concern, is that statement was publicly made that we were going to be holding another session to hear people's feedbacks, consider what they said. And I think I think it's fine if you say, well, here's and have the discussion. The survey says this, people want to do that, and hear any strong feelings one last time, and then turn it over to the planning board and say it's your vote. But
in the application submitted line on the schedule that you're sharing, Addie Mae, what is application submitted? What does that mean?
that is the,
Preliminary bylaw language goes,
Not by law. This is EOHL. So there's two things we have to pass. We have to pass an EOHLC application and an Attorney General bylaw. The EOHLC has to approve our lots and our parcels and say we are compliant with how our production would be. The
so
Attorney
that's end
General's
of
bylaw,
September.
yeah, but yeah,
So if we were to take that first September meeting, say it's the 4th,
yeah. But I was trying to get Nels, like if we had given him the parcels at the end of August, then he can take September, we could be working on the application to submit. He can't do
understood,
work
but
till we can't do the work till we say, here is our parcel.
yeah, understood. It's, yeah.
To hand it to him at the
It's-
end of
it's-
September.
It feels a little disingenuous to say, oh, we're being very transparent and holding that second meeting we promised at the end of August when everybody's on vacation.
yeah.
So if we just check the
I-
box and do it after Labor Day, and when we do it on the 4th, say, and it's not that, the 4th of September is not that different than the 31st of August. But it is, but it's not, right? So I just wonder if there's value in,
No, we just won't get our application submitted by the end of September. As long as you're aware of that our application will probably get moved into October, which moves us
but
the
but
90
it's only
days to
3
January.
days, 3 working days past the end of August.
Well, we were hoping August 13th was the date we
Oh.
were gonna set, so it's more than just that.
Okay,
So let's say the survey comes back and says, and it pretty much, by and large, 75-80% chooses one parcel, that's a parcel. And that at this session that we're gonna have, everybody comes to the same conclusion based on the data. This is what it is, then you could maybe start that writing of the application in August.
and still have the meeting on September 4th while the writing is going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's your call. You're the ones that are gonna be responsible for,
So I don't think
the
there's
town.
there's, we're
Yeah,
between a rock and a
it's not
hard
good.
spot. But I
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
idea of, just because mentally, people are on vacation, and I think if we really thought we were gonna have this great action attended event, we saw that what happens already when school's out, potentially. I mean, we had a pretty good attendance actually June 25th, but it wasn't enough for anyway, that's beside the point. I think when we send the survey out, it is great we will say the survey is ending, we need responses by X date, and the planning board is planning to discuss the results of the survey and in using it for guidance for parcel selection at the August 13th meeting, with opportunity for further, it's an open meeting August 13th. And I guess the question is, do we really, we said we would have opportunities for discussion. There's opportunities for discussion at any open meeting. I think, when I said yes, okay, maybe we'll have another workshop. Maybe we don't need another workshop if a survey with kind of some good education component provides enough, opportunity. I mean, I guess for people to feel that they had an opportunity to give their 2 cents. I mean, I know I said we'd have another workshop, but that was kind of I think we've got some good language for a survey that will really provide a lot of what we were hoping to get out of the original workshop.
I mean, what if we say on August 13th, we'll have a discussion and another chance for public input? Does that check the box as far as like another engagement? It is a public meeting.
Right, it's just, we won't be sending out then a flyer to everyone. I mean, the reason we got the 50-something people to come is we did a mailer to the whole town.
Yeah,
And that's gonna be a difference. Now, I agree
Do
that
you have a sign-in sheet from that meeting that has interested parties' email addresses?
they don't put emails. They
Well,
put their
we-
name and
we
then their address.
could, if you're worried about trying to get, how do you make sure that everyone in town who's not on the townwide email information, we could do a townwide mailing with the link for the survey to everybody.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
a good thing that
Before it closes. Yeah. Doesn't have to be before it opens.
No, no.
I mean, if you give people a month and a half to do that,
No,
or a month,
3 weeks, right? To do the survey?
Yeah, we want it by the 13th.
You know, before the 13th, so you could review it on the 13th.
Right.
This is the 10th, 21 days would be the 31st of July. It's the 9th, but say tomorrow, and then it is sent out in another couple days. So you're looking at
So
the
say
first
by
couple of days of
August. By August 6th, just to give us a couple days to,
Yeah,
Yeah,
And I don't think it's the survey's going out tomorrow, Frank.
no, but just in round numbers.
Yeah.
sorry, I was thinking into September, but
And you could even put on the flyer August 13th planning board discussion, review of results.
Yeah.
The only like real challenge with this is that like then we're stuck with whatever comes in on the survey, you know what I mean? But that's transparency. So
we're gonna be stuck anyway.
yeah, it's gonna be public information.
Well, the way that the questions are asked doesn't lock us into things that are going to
No.
be a challenge.
Hopefully, yeah.
Well,
I
no,
had
because the way the questions were written just now, you know, with that the ratings, there's no we're choosing this region or this
yeah,
site or that
the
side.
scale does provide more range.
I did have a specific comment on one of the questions. You're gonna send the questions out by email, like give us a day before you.
Yeah, I'll give you a day
actually
before we
upload it.
actually send it out to just make sure everyone has, anyone who had time to give it eyeballs on it, to just make sure there's nothing glaring or unintended.
Okay. Just so I know, is the intent with the North Sherborn Water District question or option, is the intent there that it would be in the district or near the infrastructure serving the district? That was really my question. Like an
Wait.
opportunity for future districting or in the district as currently defined? Because right now it says in the district.
Right, which it'll be any of those parcels. Meadowbrook, that's all in the district. The district's pretty big.
Okay, all of Kendall's in the district.
Yeah, Yeah.
Yes,
yeah, the district
Yes.
is different than the pipeline,
Yeah.
the connection.
we're not talking the connection, we're talking about the district, which includes
Yeah.
up to like Prospect and Meadow, yeah.
And okay, yep.
just the water district, the sewage would be
But
different.
Right.
wasn't Bob
He wants
Um,
108, he wants 108 Coolidge to be considered, which it should be, and that would be within the district, so
that is in the
question
district? Oh, I thought he
Yes.
wasn't in the district. Okay.
No, he is in the district.
Okay.
So that question would actually encompass his
Okay.
project too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we should consider the other argument, which is that all of the high density development is in one part of town. So maybe in the what is important to you, maybe there's something about like spreading high density development to different parts of town or something like that. Spreading the traffic and other impacts from high density development in a more, I don't know. I
I
just
don't know if
think
we're gonna be able to control that because with Coolidge and Meadowbrook Commons already you're gonna be skewing that. So if you're getting get people to say, yeah, we want you to spread it out, we don't have a choice where 40Bs are going.
but we have a choice where this zone goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not, but it's not as much of an impact, yeah.
Okay, you're right.
I'm
It's a
just
zone.
concerned
It's a
people are gonna say,
potential
don't put the
impact.
zone there.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we want,
It should be one part, it should be one site, right?
yeah, okay.
I think the discussion at the workshop was that it'd be most efficient to select one site based
Yeah.
on the amount of
There was an issue that there would be more units that would have to be built if it were in multiple sites.
Right.
I
I
mean, I guess
didn't-
that is one point. Is there a question or is there a way to have a question that's somehow, or maybe we put it in the education part? I think the education preface to talk about that. What are Sherborn's requirements? Sherborn's requirements are allowing, providing zoning that would allow up to 78 units at a potential density of 15 units per acre. And that and that there's, and put in that technical caveat that, and the parcels must be 5 acre parcels. And the caveat that if we select one parcel,
In the PowerPoint, Addie May, that was shared, there was a slide that I remember sort of like making significant comments on, and the whole slide was reorganized when I saw it in the PowerPoint. So I don't have the latest, but it was like, state requirements, constraints that reduce the calculation. And then there was a whole thing about like town considerations. And what was missing from that slide that I felt would have been really valuable was like single parcel, which allows the cap. Like, I think that should be added under town considerations. And another one under state, what the state one said near a transportation center, but it didn't say near other services, which I think came out in the meeting, like other commercial services or commercial establishments.
If you look at the 3A law in the same paragraph, the first statement is that it's near other services. And then the second thing it says is near
Transportation. So that's just not in that slide of like requirements and considerations and I really like that slide the way it is. So
all right, so I know that I'm pulling the educational information from kind of what Melissa's put out there because it's clean, and see if there's any graphics to pull, and the slides, and making sure that we've got the state requirements and town considerations.
well, no,
including...
I just mean that when you link to you were going to make a PDF of the front end of the PowerPoint. Link as a background information.
I mean, I wasn't going to take apart the PowerPoint and link necessarily. I mean, we have the whole PowerPoint presentation up there. I guess I thought I was making one kind of concise educational part and then have links that if someone wants to get more information, but I wasn't going to take everything there. I was trying to not make it, we want the education, but we don't want it to be so, I mean, there's so many documents already out there for education.
Right. I thought we had talked about pointing to one key document that really hammers home the key messages, and that would be the front half of the PowerPoint without the 7 sites.
I'm not making a PowerPoint.
No, the one that was made by the consultant.
Yeah, so the consultant made a PowerPoint and had 10 slides up. I don't know how many. Half the first half was on education and the second half was on parcels. And I thought we talked about sort of, rather than pointing to this website, which has so many documents on it, pointing to a version of the PowerPoint that doesn't include the parcels.
Yes.
Okay. I guess, yeah, I guess
So
I
here's
missed,
the
I did catch that we would want to maybe,
So here's a PowerPoint. So there's slide 1, slide 2, 3.
This was kind of like key backgrounds.
right. I mean, I guess,
So you would stop it at slide 7.
Yeah, but at the same time, I would also make a couple of changes to next steps, because I don't really care what the community scale is going to do for next steps. In my mind, next steps looks more like that timeline you were showing.
well, I mean, I guess that's why, I mean, this is set up as PowerPoint. That's why I was just going to take some of the key language and just have, 3 paragraphs of education and then a survey and not make it so, but I thought what we were taking away is, have the link for everything that's on the town website having a link for that page. There's, everything. We've got a lot of information. And then do kind of, there's maybe 3 or 4 key documents and identifying their name and giving their link as well. So say, okay, if you're short on time, here's kind of 3 recent things that have been posted that might help you better understand if you want to
Yes.
click. And just to kind of, so you're not opening that page and going, where do I begin? So putting highlighting a couple priority links to look at.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping that would just be one key link. Right? Like here's a wealth of resources. Here's the best overview, right? And it's
You
just
want to do this? Sorry,
yeah, it's just the first 7 slides of.
Yeah, but you wanted to change it, and I don't know if
I could change it. I don't have the PowerPoint file. I'd be glad to.
I don't think we have a PowerPoint file. We have a PDF file. And I guess the other thing is, I feel like, okay, I don't want to change his work because that's their work. That was their work. I think we can get.
Okay.
I think we could take the content that's valuable out of it and put it concise in with our survey information. And does everyone disagree with that?
No, it just sounds like more work to me, but that's fine.
Well, I guess I was trying to come up with, 3 or 4 paragraphs that just had, I think we can condense it and then, here's some links to, if you want there's a lot more information.
How
Okay.
about Addie, you just do what it is you're gonna do and share it with us, and then we can do some edits to it, or give some suggestions, or maybe if we can pull an image or something like that, that helps in clarifying some of the points that we want to add to whatever it is that you said or that you provide. How's that
Yeah,
sound?
I'm sorry. I mean, I was not trying to make more work. I was trying to make it simpler. So I please don't think that I was trying to ask you to do more work. That's the last thing I would want.
No, sorry, it's a long day, sorry.
But we're not asking the participants to weigh in on a particular site, but more on issues that will inform what site will be selected.
So I missed my volume on this. I missed what you said, Jim. I'm sorry.
Right, well, sorry, we're not asking the participants in the survey to help select a specific site, but we're giving them questions which will help inform our decision-making process on a specific site.
Right, but they just have to understand 3A before they can take the survey and answer even just those 2 questions that we're trying to get at, right?
Right.
And so I worry that trying to find 3 or 4 paragraphs to encapsulate 3A will be really difficult. I think 7 slides is more likely to, and I know that you can't put the slides into the survey, but
I mean, we can create a PDF of just the 7 slides without changing them and offer that as a link.
Yeah, that's fine.
Why don't we do that?
That was kind of where I thought we were starting from, and then I was suggesting adding a bullet or 2, but that is a good starting point.
Steph, do you have a software that you can actually change the words on PDFs?
Yeah, I do, but I understand what Addie's saying about not wanting to change their work without their permission.
If we added this 8th page to it, that was a couple of.
We'd never be able to make it look the same as theirs. The formatting would get wonky, and then I don't want to have someone accuse us of doctoring.
Okay.
I don't know. It's like
Right.
cleaner to say, here's the, if you missed the workshop, this was, because the parcel was separate. We keep that link on the website where the whole thing with all the parcels that was discussed. But here's the kind of the technical information that was shared, that education that was provided at the workshop is the first 7 slides.
Would they be willing to do it for us?
No, they don't have to do anything. Right? We're just talking about copying their first 7 slides into a new document.
Yeah, I'm just saying making a PDF, we basically print to PDF the first 7 slides to create a new.
And then you're linking that to the website, and then you putting that link into the survey.
Right. We can label it as the,
You see a bridge version of the presentation.
Yeah, I would agree. Any edits that they would need to make.
Yeah.
All right. 9:15 PM. Oh, we move on to town planner report and reports for other boards.
I was just wondering if you could give us like 2 sentences, Addie May, on that July 15th special select board meeting that with 40B mediation. Do you know anything about the where that came from?
I understand that there's been a proposal and the select board is going to hear the proposal in further discussion and has opted to do it in a forum that invites more than just the select board to attend, or just has encouraged everyone to attend and be aware of this meeting.
It was
I had made
labeled
an
as,
assumption it was in person, but I think someone else said they thought it might be a Zoom. I don't know. Heidi, do you know?
No, I don't know.
So normally the board of selectmen, unless they change their format, is Zoom, you know, so.
Right. I mean, I think we've been the only board doing any in-person meetings, but
so I guess my main question is, it's described as part of the mediation, but is your understanding that it's kind of like an unsolicited proposal from the developer to the town that doesn't have
it's a listening session is my understanding.
okay.
So
Do
if
you
we
know
all
if there's
attend,
ongoing mediation that this is part of?
Probably it's just that, I mean, there potentially is, but I don't know, that
Okay.
would be executive session potentially, but
Right,
so
okay,
Steph, what this is that he came in with one proposal and now he's coming with an alternative proposal, and this is his presentation of the alternative proposal to his projects. So that's kind of what this is.
and like, I'm really struggling to understand, when you say he came in with one proposal, are
Right,
you
and then,
talking about all of the 40B individual
as far as I
proposals?
know, other than what he's got on the table for 40Bs, outside of maybe some executive session, none of us are aware of any other proposal. That this
Okay,
proposal that was shared, that was dated June 17th, I believe, which was shared, and it was posted in the email that it was going to be posted on the land use files on the town website for, public document. But we are going to hear more about it on Monday at the select board meeting, and everyone's been invited to be aware of it.
Okay.
And attend
And-
the select board meeting. And I guess that's the next question is I'm thinking for kind of just covering bases. I mean, it's again mostly a listening session as far as my understanding is. But anyone's allowed to ask a question potentially. I guess I'm thinking we probably are served well to just to be better safe than sorry to post as a planning board meeting so that any of us can attend without worrying about quorum.
I don't know that, I mean, other boards have done that before where the entire board or more than a quorum of a board have showed up to a meeting, but if they're not having any deliberation, they don't need to call their meeting to order. But you can't call the meeting to order if you don't already have the the posted session. And so you can post it, and we don't have to call a meeting to order during that meeting unless we want to talk amongst ourselves to deliberate something that we want to then ask a further question or do something at that meeting. Does that make sense?
It does, and I know it gets weird of the process, so I think to be safe, we will attend, Heidi, if you're okay, and I think, Jim's our housing trust representative from planning board now, but, since I've done the posting for that, I was going to do the posting for the housing trust in case there were a quorum that wished to attend, just to have it posted that we were attending the select board meeting. Basically, that's the only agenda item, that we were attending the listening session that the select board was having.
so there's no
Right.
posting for the select board meeting right now.
No, there isn't, so we don't know what it is.
And the email that Jeannie sent out said it would be in the 7:45 PM timeframe. So it doesn't, I don't really know
So
how to
I
work
was
with that.
going to post for 7:30, or I guess, but then we have to open the hearing. If we post a time, do we have to open the hearing at that time?
Only if you have a
We don't
quorum.
have to call our meeting to order, even if we have
No.
a session. We don't have to call our meeting to order. That's my point. As long as we don't have discussion between us, we don't have to call a meeting to order. But we cannot call a meeting to order if we don't post. So we should post, but that doesn't mean that we have to call our meeting to order at the beginning of that meeting. It's only if we want to deliberate as a board at that meeting, then we need to call our meeting to order. So we can just sit there and listen and not call a meeting to order, even though we have the ability to call a meeting to order. But if
I think
if we
we
want
need to
ask
find out
questions
more
as a-
details. Okay, so I think if we get information that we should post, we will post to cover bases, but there is that added complication of the time and also just not having the details. It'd be best if the select board has their agenda posted first and then,
Right. Right. I'll ask tomorrow and see if we can get that clarified
okay.
and just be set to go.
Any other, is there a town planner? I know.
Steph had asked me, and I believe she's asked about Brush Hill that had been submitted
Not important.
as a
Thank you.
40B. Yeah, no, that was just another one. It isn't before planning board. It's going to be before zoning board.
They opened their hearings and it's on, the hearing opened for Brush Hill Homes and it
Yep.
was recorded and I was able to listen to it. And then I think they are not meeting again until, I feel like August sometime. So,
Right.
feel free to go catch yourself up to speed on that by listening to the wonderful YouTube videos.
Right, but we have a potential A&R coming, and Board of Health has already reached out because they're looking at parcels, and it would be the Washington Greenwood parcel where there would be 5 lots created, 4 on Greenwood and 1 on the Washington, a larger lot. So when that gets filed, we'll have our 21 days to have our approval process for the A&R on that.
The
So I'll keep
endorsement.
everyone posted.
As of the 9th, I'm out of the country for the rest of the month.
What was that, Frank?
As of August the 9th, I will be out of the country for
Oh,
the rest
okay.
of the month, so I cannot sign or be, and that's why I can't attend any meeting,
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully you're having a nice time.
hopefully.
Yeah.
It's the
So then we'll
flag.
have to make. So do you need 4 to sign or 3 to sign?
Well, Rob's gonna be here in August.
Okay. Okay.
He said he
Um,
was anyway.
I'll have to check. I thought A&R required everybody, but I don't know if it's
I don't think it
for,
requires 5,
okay,
The last one,
but I don't,
Dr. Steph didn't sign.
right.
okay. All right, maybe it's just 4.
And
I don't know if it's a super majority.
I should
now,
know.
but-
we also have Andy.
That's only for special permits, right? Or
Right, it's not for A&R.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Heidi May.
All right, I think that's all I have tonight. I will get the survey language and hopefully by the end of the week to everyone to put their eyeballs on it and make sure we're all on the same page before it goes out.
Who's going to put the survey into SurveyMonkey?
Me. So, and then if there's feedback, let's see, if there's feedback, which goes to Heidi,
Send it to me, yeah.
just, it's safer if,
You can send it out, yeah, send it out to everyone and then ask that if any comments are sent to me.
Yep.
And when you send it out, it will include like a closing date and all that stuff, Addie May.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of part of the educational
Yeah.
preface.
Yep, okay.
That my intention is having that educational preface written out to make sure it's clear and that we're not missing anything.
And then I'll have to
Disturbance.
draft a, yeah, and then I'll draft a mailer that we send out too with that, that would inform the town of the monkey, the survey.
All right, seeing the hour is 9:25 PM. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Steph's
Okay,
moved,
so
I'll
Steph's
second
moved,
it.
Frank has seconded. All in favor of adjourning this meeting, Addie Mae Weiss is aye, Jim Garino, Frank Hoke,
Aye.
and Steph Harrison.
Aye,
All right, thank you, everyone.
thank you.
And
Good
thank you,
night.
Heidi. Okay. All
See
right,
you in
have a good night,
September.
everyone.